Michel Vaujour was a man who had things to do. Not nice things, maybe, but certainly things which were impeded by the fact that in 1985 he was convicted of bank robbery and attempted murder and sentenced to 18 years in prison. He wasn't overly concerned with that, though. Before he was even convicted, he'd already been planning his escape. Every good prison break needs an outside associate, and Vaujour had one ready and waiting, his wife Nadine. As soon as Vaujour was arrested, she began taking classes to obtain her license as a helicopter pilot. With that in hand, in the months leading up to the event, she became a regular customer of a helicopter rental company in southern Paris. Inside the walls of the formidable Prison de la Santé, Michel Vaujour had befriended a man named Pierre Hernandez, who was awaiting trial on armed robbery charges. The two of them took every opportunity to examine the prison grounds, looking for the right place for a helicopter to land. After months of secretive scouting, the problem became clear. There was no place that was going to be big enough to set one down and allow it to take off again. The plan was forced to undergo a few changes. At approximately 10:30 a.m. on May 26, 1986, a helicopter flew low over central Paris. Nadine Vaujour ignored a hail of radio warnings and brought the machine to a hovering stop over the roof of one of the prison buildings. The warnings over the guards' radios of a helicopter on the roof were eclipsed by a far more intense situation developing inside the walls, and eventually Vaujour and Hernandez emerged from an access door and jogged unchallenged across the roof. While a helicopter inexplicably hovered over the prison, the guards were far more focused on another report coming over the radio. 2 inmates had apparently managed to smuggle in a number of grenades and were now threatening to detonate them if they were approached. The grenades were, it was later revealed, nectarines from the prison cafeteria which were painted green. Vaujour and Hernandez made a point to pause frequently as they made their way to the roof, menacingly waving their fistfuls of fruit at the pursuing officers. With the threat of explosives from the 2 men and the presumed threat of more explosives on board the waiting helicopter, not a single shot was fired. Vaujour scrambled up a line and grabbed the runner, eventually managing to swing himself inside. Hernandez, for reasons unknown, changed his mind at the last moment and quietly surrendered to the authorities. The helicopter disappeared from view and the Vaujours were away. They remained at large for more than 4 months, even managing to pick up their 2 daughters from under the noses of a police surveillance unit. The breakout made headlines around the world as French police presumably were forced to award Vaujour some sort of gold star in absentia for successfully completing the 5th prison escape of his career. In 2012, perhaps history's most comical prison escape took place. The guys doing the escaping had done everything right, at the start at least. With painstaking perseverance, they dug a tunnel at a prison in Ceres in Brazil. This had taken the men quite some time, but then one day they were finally ready to make their move. One of the guys was Rafael Valadeo, who weighed around 224 pounds at the time of the escape. It should be noted he wasn't exactly tall. He was the second to go through, with a much smaller man going first. Behind him were some other guys. The problem was, due to Valadeo's size, he got stuck, which left the guys behind him also stuck. When prison officers arrived on the scene, they didn't know whether to be serious or fall down laughing. Valadeo had apparently broken a rib trying to fit through the hole, and this, it seems, was amusing to the officers. One of the firefighters who was tasked with extracting him told the media. The other prisoners tried to push him, but he stayed stuck in the wall. He started screaming in pain, and that was when the prison guards were alerted, a local cop explained. He seemed to have underestimated the size of his stomach. It seems that the smaller guy actually got away, or at least that's what the report said at the time. Now for some pure, unadulterated dumb. In 2013, an inmate at Hamilton County Jail in Tennessee, USA, cooked up a plan to escape. It was a simple plan, to say the least. That was to take another prisoner's ID, a prisoner that was about to be released. So, when that man's name was called, he would simply pass himself off as the other prisoner and walk out. Simple. The guy doing the escaping was named Kenneth Burnham, a white male standing about 5 feet 7 inches. The guy whose ID he'd borrowed was named Glenn Taylor. Using this other ID and getting as far as claiming the other man's belonging, Burnham was almost out the door when a prison officer noticed something didn't look quite right. That was the fact that Burnham didn't look anything like the person whose ID he was carrying. Taylor was, in fact, an African-American male, and his height was closer to 5 feet 10 inches. When officers asked Burnham why he thought he could pass himself off as someone with vastly different skin color, his reply was that he was desperate to get out and that he was being dumb. We can't disagree with that. In 2016, the media reported that a prisoner in Brazil thought about replicating his own version of the escape in the movie The Shawshank Redemption. The prisoner, who was locked up in a Brazilian jail, had enough of being inside, and so, like many before him, decided he would try and break free. But in a high-security prison, there are few escape options available, with concrete walls and metal bars designed specifically to keep criminals from getting loose. We don't know his name, but thanks to a video that appeared online, we know his method of escape. He had believed that if he took out the toilet bowl in his cell, he'd be able to escape through the sewer pipes. Slithering headfirst into the sewage tunnel under the toilet, the prisoner appears to have some success getting to the first bend in the pipes before he gets into difficulty. After desperately trying to wriggle himself to freedom, the man finally admits defeat and has to accept help from 2 other men on dry land. As they grip onto his extremely skinny legs, the men struggle to pull the man back out of the tunnel and into the toilet. Finally, as the man emerges from the toilet bowl, he stands on 2 feet again, but faces a pretty messy cleanup operation. Completely coated with human excrement, the man can then be seen standing in his cell, reeling from his ordeal. While few details are known about the escape attempt, some reports have suggested it was in the Sao Paulo region of Brazil. As you might have seen in the movies, if you are going to dig an escape tunnel, one of the things you'll need to do is ventilate the place, or you might find yourself struggling to breathe. That's what happened in 2018 to a 25-year-old Brazilian man named Judson Cana Evangelista at Monte Cristo Penitentiary in northern Brazil. This guy did everything right at the start, spending months digging a tunnel during the nights and covering the entrance to the hole during the day. He managed to dig an impressive tunnel that was 230 feet long and reached all the way to the outside. It seems one night he had been digging, but was struggling to breathe, so he scurried as fast as he could back to his cell. He died anyway from an acute lack of oxygen. Shocked officers discovered a hole which began underneath the toilet in Evangelista's cell in Wing 7 of the Monte Cristo Penitentiary, the largest prison in Brazil's northernmost state of Roraima. The dirt tunnel continued for 230 feet underneath the prison and had already passed under its heavily fortified outer walls and electric fences, according to prison authorities. The tunnel is believed to have taken months to excavate and was reportedly just a few meters away from reaching the surface in the surrounding forest outside. Officers found several bags of dirt and an electric cable which ran the length of the tunnel with a light bulb on the end. The State Justice Department, SEHUC, which is in charge of the prison, said 150 policemen took 7 hours to locate the tunnel after prison officers were alerted to its existence following Evangelista's death. It is believed the prisoner was planning to charge other inmates to use the tunnel in a mass escape bid. The tunnel has now been filled with concrete, a spokesman said. In January 2018, the Monte Cristo jail made headlines after a bloody rebellion broke out, during which more than 30 prisoners were killed. At the time, the prison, which had a capacity of 750 inmates, was housing more than 1,400.